going to get into our second project, the Baltimore list. And for this project, we're going to want to find something in Baltimore that excites us, and then we want to use a combination of text and images and graphics to produce an animation, to produce a motion graphic. And today I want to show you a project I've put together that isn't necessarily about Baltimore, but that's where I'm from Amsterdam. And there's this word in our language, in Dutch, gezellig. And this is the kind of the appreciation and enjoyable atmosphere you create when people come together. And so there's no direct English translation. And so that's why I chose to make an animation about this piece, because I wanted to use motion graphics to convey something that is difficult to convey with words alone. And so I'm going to show you how I took a design that I made in Illustrator and I divided it and organized it into layers, and then I imported things into After Effects so I could animate them. So as you can see here in front of you, I have some of the storyboards lined up, and my process was very much I have inspiration, I have storyboards, I have style frames, and then I ended up producing things and putting things in After Effects and animating them. And so that's what you'll be doing for this project. And so I want to show you a little bit about my process. So we're going to go to Illustrator here. And as you can see, which I'll show you later, there's actually a plugin that does cost money but makes things a little easier, but allows you to very easily do this manual process that I'm about to show you. But I have created all of these different storyboards and designed them with the grid in mind, and I've designed it with all the text in mind. After I wrote my script and I narrated my script, I knew exactly what words I was going to be using throughout the duration of the animation, and then I went in and broke it up into different storyboards. And all of the storyboards includes imagery, includes graphics and text and things like that. And so this is my overall design. I'm going to show you how to kind of go bit by bit and do this manually, and then I'll show you a different approach. So here I have my very first storyboard. So in the animation, we have this very first part.
We all need people to share good time with, and the Dutch have a special word for this connection.
So as you can see, straightforward. We have a grid, we have some text, we have some images, we have some graphics. And so here's my storyboard for that, or my style frame that's been developed inside of Adobe Illustrator. And so here I have all the loose pieces. The first step when you're done creating a piece, right, and notice that these are text elements that are editable, and those are different than this graphic element that's still a vector versus, and this isn't an image, right, this is just a placeholder graphic, but I wanted something that I could later use to mask an image into. But if we go to the top right here, we see our layers panel. And what we want to do is we want each individual graphic to be on its own layer. So we can easily do that. I mean, you could select a new layer and then drag it over, but that's time consuming. So let's select all of our graphics. And then at the top right of our layers panel here, if we press the little hamburger icon, and then we press release to layers sequence. This will divide all of the layers automatically, or all of the graphics, onto their own layers. One final step that we have to do before this works, you see that all of these layers are nested inside of this one layer. We want to be sure to drag all of these layers outside of that layer. So just what I did is I selected the top one, I hold in shift, I select the bottom one, and then I drag it out of that layer. Now this layer is empty, so we really don't need it. But to stay super organized, you could go through and label each layer. This might be very convenient for when we're in After Effects and we're trying to remember what each layer is, right? And so I would take the time and go through and label each layer accordingly. Okay, so now that we have labeled all of our layers, which I didn't, but theoretically, you want to file and save as, and then find somewhere on your computer to save it. I'm just going to save it as test on my desktop. Okay. And then we open up After Effects. As you can see here, I've gone through and taken all the layers and added different effects like blur effects, and I've added transparency animations, and I've taken a lot of time to fine-tune the animation. And doing this kind of step-by-step process allows us to have control over that. But let's make a new composition, and this time we're going to go with 1080p 1920, or actually false. We're probably just going to go with let's go with a preset. Let's go with this last one, 1920p by 1080p at 29.97 frames per second. And let's name our composition test, because this is our test composition. And what we want to do here is we want to go to our Finder and find where we saved our Illustrator file. Right here, beautiful. And then we can import it in there, and then we're going to get this dialog box. This dialog box is going to ask you how to import, how you want your Illustrator file imported. And so we want to stick on composition. By default, it might be on footage, so you might have to change this to composition. And then we want to stay on layer size for our footage dimensions. We hit OK, and now as you can see, it has created a new composition for us. So actually, what I did, where I created a composition first, was unnecessary. It creates the composition for you. Wait. It's called test 2. And here you can see all of the pieces have been individually added to our scene. And so we can move all of them individually, right? But we have another step that we need before we're able to actually work with the properties of these objects. This is really important. So we want to select all of these. And as you can see, we still have the AI icon, like folder icon next to it. We want to convert these to vector layers inside of After Effects. So we select all of our layers, we right click, we go to create shapes from vector layer. If you don't do this, things are going to look jagged, things are going to look like raster images, and you probably won't have access to a lot of the properties that you'll need to adjust, like the text. You won't be able to edit that. If you're working with lines, like I'm working with grids right here, you won't be able to adjust the thickness of those stroke widths. So we have to create shapes from our vector layer. All right, I had one empty layer, so it's just giving me this error message, but no worries. Hit OK. And now we can go back in, and we don't need any of these layers anymore. Well, I need some of them. I'm not sure which, but it has turned off. You see the eyeball icon for each of these AI layers has been turned off. All right, so here we have our layers as vectors. And as you can see, if you dial it open now, let's see. Let me give you an example. If we dial open this layer that we imported directly, right? All we have is a transform property, but we scale it up and it gets all crunchy. Look at how low resolution that is. And all we can do is animate the transform properties. But if we look into this newly created vector layer, you can actually see that the vector is being outlined, right? So that means it has actually created a vector. So now, under the flower outlines layer that we've just created, we can drop down our contents and we can actually adjust each individual little thing, right? So that might be a little complicated for this example, but we have other examples where we have rules of our grid, and we'll need to be able to adjust those. So create, and so now if we scale this up, for example, right, you're not going to see any of that, of those jagged edges. And so that's an important part of our process. We import, we organize our layers in Illustrator, we import it in After Effects, and then we take the layers and convert them to vector shapes. All right, so now let me show you something else, something that's super convenient. When I'm working on a large project like this can get pretty tedious and pretty time consuming. So I want to show you one plugin that helps out a lot that I wish was built in After Effects, but it's kind of like a go-to that you kind of need for everything. Okay, so there's this plugin called We can just type it in. Overlord by Battle Axe. Here we go. Overlord, 75 bucks. But if you're a motion designer, this is going to be an essential tool, right? And so you can look up how it all works here. They've got some really fun branding, some really fun illustrations. But let's go see how it works in After Effects and Illustrator. So in either of these programs, you'll now be able to, after you install it, go up to Window, and under Extensions, select Overlord. And now you can see you have this toolbar. And so if we go back to After Effects and we open up a new composition, it's a blank composition, right? We can just select all of these items, and without having to organize it or anything, we can just push these straight to After Effects. So I hit that button, and now I open up After Effects. It's going to take a while to think, but it's all there for us. All the text is editable. All the lines you can go into, and you can adjust the width of the lines. Is it this? Stroke width. See, you can actually, I don't know which stroke I'm targeting here, but you can actually go back in and you have a lot of control over the individual properties of each individual element, which is very useful if you're working with a mix of text and images and graphics and things like that. And so I just wanted to show you that plugin and that process because that is very convenient. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing for your second project. Is you're going to be creating a long form animation about Baltimore and using a combination of these things.